Hello, everybody, and welcome today to WinPure's weekly webinar. My name is Ben Cutler, and I'm one of our solutions specialists here at WinPure. I see a few familiar names, people that are joining us today, and I know we've got folks all across the world. Some of those are current users of the software or new users of the software, but I know we've also got some folks out there that are looking at the software and evaluating and deciding about whether or not it's the right solution. So I hope today's webinar is really useful for the audience that's joining us today and for anyone that watches the recording. Just a quick introduction before we get started here. Keep in mind, we're hosting these weekly webinars typically to cover a very specific topic, generally geared towards product training, both for beginners and more advanced users. And we're also going to be covering some very specific use cases and hot topics, occasionally inviting guest speakers. So please stay tuned and join us when you can, or keep your eyes out for the recordings if you can't join us live. As you know, this week we're going to be taking a closer look at really an introduction to data matching for beginners. Quick note, everyone on the call is muted, but you can ask questions via the question box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And I will try to answer those questions, usually starting at about the 15-minute mark. So keep in mind, following this webinar, if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to book a one-on-one or a group demo with me, I'll include a link to my online calendar along with a recording of this webinar once the webinar is finished. So feel free to reach out directly by email or schedule some time if you'd like to suggest a topic, if you have some questions. Again, if you'd like to set up a meeting, whatever it may be, feel free to get in touch. I'll include all of those details in an email following this webinar. So thanks again for joining us today. Keep the introduction very brief. Again, we're going to take a quick look at really an introduction to data matching and deduplication. So we're going to jump into the demonstration here. And again, keep in mind, feel free to submit questions along the way, and we'll circle back to those questions at about the 15-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the software and just want to make sure everybody's seeing what they should. Yeah, everything looks great there. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First things first, we're going to start by loading some data very quickly and easily. I'm going to click on import. We've got a few kind of popular file sources down below, but we've got file types, databases, CRMs. So feel free to mix and match sources and bring in data wherever it may reside. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a couple of Excel worksheets here to work through the demo today. So again, very quick, very easy, very plug and play. So I'm going to bring in a couple of Excel worksheets. I'm also going to rename each table. So I'm going to call this our master data. And the second sheet, I'm going to go ahead and call that weekly. So again, we're going to do some data matching and deduplication today. I've loaded a couple of files. Quick note, just for general orientation and really best practice when it comes to data matching and deduplication. We do have some other things that we're really not going to look at today. So the clean step will allow you to profile the data quality, really do some data exploration there to better understand the data. That clean step also has plenty of powerful functions to help you clean, standardize, and to prep your data, be it for matching to get better match results or for any other purposes. For some additions, we also have worldwide address verification. We can even do that country by country. That's useful for data matching and for other purposes as well. The enterprise edition or better also includes an automation unit. But again, so there are some other things, but today we're just looking at matching. So I'm going to start by loading some data, which I've done, and we're going to skip right over to the match step here. So again, this is really kind of a three-step approach, and there's a few things to know. When we move to match, we have match configuration. Once we've configured the match and run a match event, we'll be able to view results and do some set up some survivorship, master record management type of rules. Once we have results, we'll also have a report. So all of that's going to be here. Three-step approach to setting up the match configuration. Step 1, select your table. I'm just going to start with our master data source. So we're going to start with a quick demonstration of data matching and deduplication within a single source. And then we'll come back and we'll run a quick demonstration of what it looks like to match between more than one source, right? So moving over to step 2, essentially at this point, we're just going to select the columns that we want to use for matching. So any columns I select will be moved over to step 3, at which point I can kind of further fine tune the way that I want to do that matching. So a quick example here is we want to match on company name. So I've double clicked, or I can click and drag. Here I'll see group 1 and company name. And by default, this is set up just to make it very simple. We're going to do some fuzzy matching on the company name column. And we're going to do that essentially looking for a 90 threshold, or a 90% level of similarity. We can make some other configurations, but we're not going to touch on all of this now. Just a quick demonstration. Fuzzy matching on the company name at 90%. We're going to start matching. We'll have some very quick results. We're not going to look too deep into the results at this point. Probably set up another webinar to look more at results validation. But I want to see my system columns. And just a bit of orientation here at the results step. I'm on my only groups view, or I can look at non-matches. What's the difference? Only groups, I'm seeing group by group with that cluster ID, group ID 1, 2, 3, source name, so where the data comes from, some other information including scoring. Any columns that I've used for matching are going to be highlighted. I can see all of that here. So only groups is where we're actually going to be looking at groups of matching records. Non-matches is going to be a view where we're actually seeing non-matching records, those that were unique and did not match any other records. All data is where we're going to see essentially all data, right? So we're going to stay here. This is really kind of the most relevant view for this demonstration. So once you've gotten to this step, and if you're happy with the results, you're probably going to set master records. You may want to do some updating or overwriting. You may want to remove some records from groups as not duplicates. You may want to merge some information, and you may even want to delete some information. Final step would be the export, right? So quick example here. You can see for group 1 and those groups that follow, I don't have selected here any master records, nor any that are selected. And what I'm going to do is a quick demonstration of just in bulk, setting up a rule that will assign master records for each group, right? So very quick example here. There's a lot more to see. There's a lot more to talk about. Again, we'll probably set up another webinar just to look at this, but a quick example, and I'm just going to really use probably the easiest and the most common approach here, is we're gonna set a rule to select master records based on the most popular record from a specific source, right? So I'm going to execute that rule. Here you can see that has been completed. I now have a master record for each group of matching or duplicate records. Next example, updating and overwriting information here. And just quick note, you can see each time I hover over these buttons, I'm getting an explanation and an option to jump over to our online help file. So all of that information is going to be available to you as you work through this. Update and overwrite is good to fill in the blanks in some cases. So when you look at matching records here, you may have data on one side that doesn't exist on the other side, or you may have one value that is more accurate, more reliable than other values, or more desirable. So a quick example here is I'm just going to make sure that all matching records contain the same title, right? Very simple example. So I'm going to update and overwrite on the title field. I'm going to do that with the most popular value, and I'm going to update all values, not just those that are empty. So a quick example there. Now that title column has been standardized across matching records. So we've completed that job. The next example here is going to be merge. And merge is really helpful when we have multiple unique contact names or email addresses or phone numbers and things like that. So multiple unique values, and we want to retain all of that information. So in this case, I'm going to use the contact name field, and I'm just going to merge those. So take a look at a quick example, contact name, keep all values. Now, when I execute, two things are going to happen here. It's going to go ahead and merge all of our matching records. What I'm going to be left with is just a master record for each group, right? It's going to take us over to all data, and we're going to see a clean set of data. It's also going to retain all unique contact names. So I'll show you what that looks like. Go ahead and merge. You can see we've moved over to all data. And if we look at group 1, follow that over, you can see the change in the title there. You can see the original contact name and then all uniques. So if there were multiple unique phone numbers, contact names, email addresses, or anything else that we wanted to hang on to, you'll see a new column with that, with all of those unique values. So really, really useful there. Once we've gotten to this point, now of course we can do a few things to kind of prep the data for export, right? Maybe we want to get rid of our system columns, get rid of all of the scoring and the group IDs and things like that. Maybe we don't. We can also further drill into it, right-click on any column in the upper right-hand corner, right or left-click, and you can do some additional sorting, filtering, searching, things like that, conditional formatting, all of that's available to you. But if you're happy with the data the way that, that you see it here, go ahead and export. You can export to different file types, different databases, you can export with style, or you can move to data, which could be really useful. This option moves this clean set of data back to the data step, step 1, so that we can do some additional work. Maybe we want to do some additional profiling of the data, maybe we want to do some additional cleanup, or maybe we want to match this set of data against another set of data, right? So very, very, very useful there. So real quick here, we're going to run another example. So we showed you what it looks like to match and deduplicate data within a table or within a single data source. Now we're going to come back to configuration and look at an example where we're going to include more than one data source. So I'm going to start off by including that second data source. Step 2, again, we're going to essentially click and drag or add columns from step 2 to step 3 to set up that match definition. Now, one quick note here is that from source to source, we do want to make sure that any like columns or any similar columns have been mapped out. If you need to make changes, you can, right? You'll see a drop down on the second or any tables that follow. Everything looks good. So again, a quick example, matching on the company name. We're set up to match it, again, using our best-in-class fuzzy match algorithm at 90%, and we're going to go ahead and start matching. Right, and again, we're starting here now at all data because that's where we left off. So we're going to go back to only groups. Now, a quick note on the view, when we are matching with more than one table, you are going to see some additional views here. So here we've got across tables. So what you're going to want to look at when you're matching with multiple files or data sources are going to be one of these two views here. You know, in some cases, you might want to look at non-matches or, you know, non-matches full or non-matches. But for today's demo, we're going to look at these two. The big difference here is only groups are going to show you all matching records, all groups with all matching records, be they only within one of the two sources, or across sources, or a mix and match within and across sources. So only groups is really a very holistic view of the results, allowing you to see all matching records, all duplicates within and across these file sources or these data sources. Across tables is only going to show you groups with matching records across sources. So a bit of a difference there, but again, only groups is more common. It is the more holistic view there. So again, a quick example, and I'm going to bring my system fields back here. Quick example, we're going to set master records. Again, we've run a new match event. So again, we're starting with a new clean slate here. So I'm going to walk through these rules again very quick. Again, we're going to use the most populated record from our master data. We're going to execute that rule. We're going to run a quick overwrite, again, on that title field. We're going to say the most popular. And, oh, let me jump back there and run that once more. I think I grabbed the wrong column. Oh, be patient with me. So we're going to update all, not just empty values here. So again, title, Oh, what did I do here? So hang tight. We'll get it right, not a showstopper. So we're going to update the most popular and all values. So we should get it right that time. There we go. So we're good to go. And again, we're going to use that same merge example, move over. Again, contact names, we want to keep all unique contact names. So again, contact names, keep all, and select that to merge. So we're back at all data. Again, we have a clean set of data now. Take a quick look. We have all of our unique contact names. We're ready to go. We can keep or hide those system fields, and then again, run that exporting. Again, keep in mind if you need to do any kind of sorting, filtering, conditional filtering, things like that, all of that can be done with a right or left click. But go ahead, if you're ready, you can go ahead and export from this point. So let's go ahead and stop and open up to questions here today. Hopefully that was really useful, straightforward. If anybody has any questions about what I just demonstrated, or if you have other questions about anything else, go ahead and submit those questions now and we'll take a look. Great. So first question, what does the fuzzy threshold mean? Well, let's get a visual here. Let's jump back to configuration. Fuzzy threshold is going to be the fuzzy level, right? You can find that here. So each criteria or condition or column that I add to my match definition, I'm going to be able to set up a fuzzy level or a fuzzy threshold. Essentially, that's a minimum level of similarity that we require for that column. So in this case, it's essentially 90% similarity on the company name field. So hopefully that's clear for you there. Appreciate the question. Next question here, when matching two tables, what if when mapping columns, they are different column names? Yeah, great question. So this is a really common, I think, obstacle for those, for folks that do not have a solution in place. So it's going to be very simple. I think the question here is, again, we've got two sets of data and each set of column names may be very different, but we still want to do the matching, right? So, company name, it may exist, in the master data as company name. In the weekly data source here, it may exist as, provider name or something along those lines. On this side, we may have address 123 zip and state, and on weekly, we have address 12 city zip and state. And, so again, in that case, if we have those fields that, they have those different column names or column headers, we can go ahead and use this drop down here, and we can just map, one column to any other column and still do the matching that way. So it's very, very simple. Appreciate the question. Another question here, how well does this work when matching millions of records? Great question. It's really the fastest solution on the market. I know my competition very well, and there are some solutions out there that are built for more of a technical audience, and other solutions that are built for business users like our solution. And the software is multi-threaded, so it's going to use all processing CPU or processing power that it has available to it. So it's really going to be the fastest solution that you can find when it comes to processing. Most important consideration there is just setting the software up on the type of CPU that can really handle the job. So if you want to discuss that in more detail, feel free to reach out. If you'd like to see some benchmarking or something along those lines, I can certainly make that information available. Feel free even just to shoot me an email if I can get you more information there. Next question here, what does the add group mean? Yeah, great question. So up top here, you're going to see add group, remove group, add condition, and remove condition. So currently we have a single group with a single condition, but I can also add a group and add another condition. So that second condition might be, for example, contact name. So what this allows me to do is essentially create groups of conditions used for matching, right? So I think most importantly in terms of the explanation here is that if the matches aren't found here, we might set up another group so that they're found here using this criteria. right? So we might even set this up differently. One group, matching using a fuzzy match or best-in-class fuzzy match algorithm at 90%. And the second really just looking for contacts because maybe they changed companies or something along those lines. So it allows us to look at it from different ways. So again, if they're not found here, we can look at it this way and find them this way. Great question. Again, if anything is unclear, if you'd like to have a better discussion, feel free to reach out. Next question here. Fuzzy match will lead to merging of records for which company is different, but is in threshold. How can we avoid it? Fuzzy match will lead to merging of records for which company is different, but is in the threshold. How can we avoid it? Okay, great question. So I'm going to take kind of a shot in the dark. If you want to respond back with some more detail, feel free. But it sounds like the question here is really about kind of false positives. Let's jump back to results here. Actually, I need to run the match again to get the matching records back here. So let me bring my system columns back. So again, we're matching on company name, and so this is a good example, right? And there are lots of ways to kind of prevent that. So it's really kind of a question of, what is that approach going to look like? What is your process going to look like? It is an iterative process, matching data, right? It's, data quality is really a can of worms. So, you're probably going to need to throw a few darts in order to get it right. But there are a lot of tools throughout the software, a lot of different ways that you can kind of tweak the way that things are working to get better results. So if you look at this company name field, again, we've got some false positives. You can see that the first, second, and sixth record look to be matches on this company name, but really looks like, the third, fourth, and fifth aren't. And the question, as I understand it, is, how do I, it may meet the similarity, but how do I make sure that, I'm not running into scenarios where I'm getting false positives in those groups, right? And so, it's a great question. It's really important that you ask that question. So I can't go into everything today, but I'll give you just, again, a bit of explanation. So the clean step, that's exactly why we have the clean step, right? We can better understand our data, right? If you look down below, there's lots of information here to better understand average length, max length, casing, most common, values. If you take a look at that there. Casing, spacing, other characters that may not exist, how much data do we have? So all of this can be useful to better understand the data. And then up top here, all of these tools can be used to prep the data to get better results. So it really kind of depends on the scenario. We might be talking about matching on people data, and names and things like that. We might be talking about matching company data, company names and things like that. So, there's a lot of different scenarios there, and we've got a lot of tools available to help you kind of prep that data to get better match results right here at the clean step. Also at the match step, I do want to make sure to point out at the configuration step here, our knowledge-based library. Again, so a lot of configurations, a lot of adjustments can be made right here at the match step. So, what you might, your starting point really might be, how do I really build the right match definition, right? Maybe I'm matching with just a company name, but maybe I need to also match with an address field, because is this, this by itself returning the best results? It may not be, right? So you're going to want to look at that match definition and your fuzzy levels and your weights, but also the knowledge-based library. This is used to help you get much better results as well. If you want to take a look at this in more detail, come up top, click on match, click on knowledge-based library, and you can see all of the different libraries here that are used to help you get better match results. So that's something we'll go into more detail in on probably another webinar. And I encourage you to reach out. We can continue the conversation that way. And if you want to queue up some data and look at it together, I'm happy to help you. So hopefully that gives you kind of a good starting point there. Let's take a look here. Next question. How is the master record determined when there isn't a value that is most common? Let's take a look here. Let's jump over to results. Master records are determined in a few different ways. Let's pull this up again. So this is most populated, right? And I think the question was about most common. The example that I gave was the most populated record. So if we do have groups of matching records, probably the easiest, the most common way to set a master record is just choosing or telling the software to choose the most populated record from a specific source, right? You may know that one source is, potentially, more accurate, more up to date, more reliable than other sources. And you probably want to keep the record that has the most data. So this is the most common approach, and essentially it's taking the most populated record from a specific source here. Now, again, there are some other ways to do this. If we look up top here, meet all, meet any. Again, I'm not going to go into this into great detail, but we can also set it up so that it's looking at specific fields, and we can set up some rule-based ways of setting up that master record there. So again, if this is something you want to discuss in more detail, I would welcome that conversation. Feel free to shoot me a note or put some time in the calendar. I'll send you a link, and we can you can pick a time that way. This is again, this is the most common. This is a very easy way to do it. If you've got a more challenging scenario, you want to do something very specific, reach out, and I'm happy to help you with that. Good question. Again, the survivorship rules here in terms of how do I determine which master record to set, how do I determine, how to update and overwrite the data, how do I determine how to merge the data. Those are pretty advanced questions, and it's really going to be case by case in every scenario, really depending on what you need, what your objectives are, what those goals are. So great question. Let me see if we had any other questions coming in here. Yeah, can the matching report be customized? Yeah, great question, and thanks for that question, because we didn't look at the match report here. So again, once we do have results, we're going to see that report. So right out of the box, we've got some very quick and useful information, visual information about what we did and what the software found. That can be very, very useful for you, kind of a high-level executive report, so to speak. The report can be edited, so click on Edit up top here, and you'll see a lot of ways to edit the report. I think you can even build templates for the reports here, so feel free to build that out. We might do another webinar on this more specifically. There's really a lot to it here. Those reports can be edited, so drill into that and let us know if you have any questions about how that works. Great question. That looks like it's about it for today. We're about out of time here and out of questions. So I just really want to thank everybody again for joining us today. It's been fun. Hopefully this was useful. Please catch us next week or keep your eye out for those recordings. Thank you very much and have a great day.